Good evening. Welcome to the 5-8, where we discuss each of the week's 5 most fucked up topics for 8 minutes. 5 topics, 8 minutes, 2 hosts, a guest. I'm singing a lot of curse words, especially this week, I think, and as many cocktails as we deem necessary. LB, how are you?
I'm on the water.
You're on the water. Is it even like sparkling water? Is there a twist in it? It's just
sometimes I'm into the sparkling water. I feel like that gets an era. Like it gets a couple years. And then I don't want to deal with sparkling water for a long time. And then it will come back around. So it's just water.
Okay. So you go to the bar and you say, ice water on the rocks. Like
that's what I say. Yeah, how about you? What you having?
This is just tequila, man.
Okay. How was your 4th of July?
My 4th of July was nice. I painted my vestibule, which needed painting badly. And I had a cheeseburger, which was good, and corn on the cob, and those kind of things that we enjoy on the 4th of July. And how was yours?
It was nice. I was on the lake. I mean, what's better than 4th of July on the lake?
Binge watching Jury Duty with your wife.
I can't.
Which is what I did. It's fun. It was good.
Speaking of reality shows, so
before that was a good segue. But before we get to the reality show, okay. Great Britain, man.
Every segue you step on, every segue I make, you step on it, and it's unnecessary. You can come around. Come around.
I'm not good at the improv.
I don't step on your jokes, man. Don't step
improv
on
is
segues.
Like yes, and I'm like, no.
Right, go say what you need to say. That's so important.
Okay. I'm sorry. They had elections in Great Britain, and the good guys won, which is nice because they've been being run by horrible Tories for these long years, and now we have finally in Europe like a good government again in the United Kingdom, which I think.
Let's see what happens.
Symbolically, the fact that the election was on the 4th of July, and that Keir Starmer is basically a younger version of Joe Biden, same kind of guy. I don't know. Maybe it augurs well for us here in the United States. Also, the other thing, real quick, Rishi Sunak gave a really nice, classy concession speech at the end. And it was so nice and refreshing to watch someone give a concession speech that wasn't Trump doing it. You know what I mean? Like it was just, that's how it's done.
Yeah.
And I got chills watching it. I really did. It was a wonderful.
Who knew how sacred all that was? I mean, the founders knew how sacred it was. And people commented at the time that we threw off a monarchy, and George Washington actually passed the presidency to the next person. And we had a peaceful transition of power for the first time. There was a lot talked about and written about that moment and how sacred it is. But until this beast, your rough beast, as you describe him, came in and started, the process, we didn't realize how sacred it is. So I think it is moving.
It is. It is. So yeah, the only other thing I know about Great Britain really is the Great British Baking Show. So what were you going to say about reality TV?
You're throwing it back. You're stealing my segue now and throwing it back at the end.
Back to you.
What you wanted to say, even though you could have said it after. I just was pointing out for everybody that down below is you'll see our topics are all based on reality TV shows, because that's what we're in, Greg. We're in one great big production.
It sure seems that way. And I mean, first of all, and I know everybody watching this is probably in the same boat here. All anybody wants to talk about is this Joe must go bullshit. And my brain is exploding with it. It's so like, I've been doing this for a long time now, and I know how the ops work and how wedge issues get weaponized. And I watch it happen in real time, and it's fucking happening. It just is. And I feel like if the Russians and the Kremlin who are doing the op stuff want Joe to go, and none of the mainline Democrats do, and it's all like, the douche bros and like never Trump weirdos or whatever, maybe just saying maybe he shouldn't go. Maybe we should do not what the Kremlin wants.
Well, this has been my point of view. So I agree with you. Let me set the timer. Let's just get into it.
Yeah.
Let's just get into it.
let's get into it. I mean, like Disney Nepo baby doesn't want Biden. I don't care. Why should I give a shit what who cares?
Which Nepo baby? Which one?
Abigail Disney. She's withdrawn.
Oh, who cares about Abigail Disney? Go away.
Yeah. The Netflix, the guy in Netflix isn't Netflix. What did they do? You're not going to.
Ted Sarandos?
No, the other guy, Reed, whatever.
Reed,
you're not going to show the Kavanaugh documentary on your channel. Then what fucking good are you? That's it.
I mean,
I want to read a quote just to set the mood here. Okay, this is a quote, and I told you who said this, but I want everybody and people that read my thing this morning will know. But let's see if we can guess who said this. A presidential election is not a Grammy Award contest for the best singer or entertainer. It's about who has the best policies that impact our lives. I'm going to do everything I can to see that Biden gets reelected. Bernie fucking Sanders. Bernie fucking Sanders.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yes.
And you know how I feel about Bernie.
I do. You know how I feel about Bernie.
We do not like Bernie. Spoiler alert. So
spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But Biden reined him into the coalition, and there he is, right? But you thought about this, and I think this is true, and the Bernie quote leads into it, that we're really just in a reality show here. This is what it feels like, right?
It feels like a great big old production, because everybody kind of and by everybody, I mean the talking heads that come at us about it, the opinion, the discourse shapers, right? Who have the power to shape the discourse because they have the platforms and they have the audience and the capture. So the discourse shapers just, it's like a clumsy country two-step, right? They got the dance down. They're one or two dance moves. They're the awkward people on the dance floor, but everybody's staring at them because you can't not stare at them. And it doesn't matter what song is playing, and it doesn't matter what era it is, and it doesn't matter, there's no reading the room. And it doesn't matter if there's a guy outside with a machete, right? Slashing apart democracy with one hand, and apparently, according to the 150-page documents released in the Epstein 2006 court case, raping young girls with the other hand. It doesn't matter that that's the other guy. That's going on out there. There's a whole circus, a whole dangerous Stephen King clown show, apocalyptic. Outside the tent is all this stuff is going down. They're in there doing their country two-step, I don't know.
Do-si-do your corner.
Do-si-do.
Do-si-do your neighbor.
Yeah. So, and Mark Burnett is taking his cut, producing it all, like kind of thing. That's just what it feels like. I'm not saying he's doing that anymore. I'm just saying it just, I don't have, I said to you, I don't want to rant. I never want to rant anymore. I'm done with ranting. I'm done with being angry about it. I just was like, what did I say last week? I said, give it 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're only in week 1. Now, there is something happening right now as we're on air with each other live. And Biden is doing an interview with Stephanopoulos.
Yeah, which already happened. I think they're just running it. And I saw a clip of it. And it's basically let's prove that Biden is not a senile old man interview. That's the purpose of it.
Right.
So I don't think there's he's not. And that's, let's move on.
I mean,
the one thing I want to say about this is that, and I don't think it's framed in this, we're voting for the ticket. We're voting for Biden-Harris. That's who we're voting for.
That's right.
So if and when Joe Biden decides that he needs to step down and not be president anymore, Kamala Harris will step in and be president. And whether that happens next week, next month, in December, or 3 years from now, it's fine. That's what we want. That's what we're voting for. That succession plan. And I like that succession plan. I'm down with the succession plan. So as I wrote today, and as you and I talked about, I don't give a fuck if Joe Biden is in an iron lung. I am voting for him. And everyone else should. It's just, I don't know.
You can't say it's the most consequential election. Oh my God, this is it. And if ever we're going to do something, this is it. We have to do it. We have to. And knowing what that ticket is running on and what they're going to do in their second term,
Yeah.
Which anybody can look at and see and look at what everything they already accomplished. The old man who couldn't find apparently is doddering around accomplished more than any other president. It's all these sort of narratives that they don't work together. You've got to, it's that thing I always say, you got to pick. You got to pick. And if it's Joe Biden's told he has to go pick because democracy matters so much, but no one else can beat Trump, and trying to switch gears like that midstream when you don't really know just because of one debate performance, throwing everything up, just throwing it over the wolves. It's Hail Marrying before you need a Hail Mary with a football that you don't even know what it is from God knows where else. It's never been tested, and it could be full of lead. You don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I would think if it's the most consequential election ever in the history, which I believe it is, and I believe it, if that guy gets in, it is the end of democracy, our democracy, then I'm not playing that game.
Yeah.
I'm not playing that game. I'm not taking that risk.
Yeah.
So again, the arguments just but they fall on one another, which is actually the theme in our next segment. If we're done talking about this, everyone, look,
I think we're done.
If he's out, whoever's in, we'll jump on that bandwagon. We'll circle the wagons, but it's up to him. He's saying no. He's clear as day. Unless this interview with Stephanopoulos, he comes out honking like a donkey. I mean, this is it. Let's go forward. Yeah. Let's move through this moment. Again, we'll get through this moment. This is just a moment. And I also remember this moment. I remember it very well. I tweeted a little bit about it. From 8 years ago. Remember when Hillary was going to die?
Oh, yeah. Terrible. Yeah. Terrible.
There was 2 weeks of total hysteria. You have to replace her on the ticket. Now, something was found that stuck in terms of a narrative that the media could jump on and go, we'll make this what it is. And it was her emails. That stuck and worked. So because it was allowed to work and no one really knew any better, they could make that excuse that they didn't know any better. We know better now. So what are you doing? What are you doing, everybody? That's it.
Yeah. One more last thing real quick. If Kamala, if it winds up being Kamala and they go through with the plan here, and it has to be one or the other, by the way, because they're not just going to piss $100 million away. The attack that they're going to use against her is that she's covered up Biden's age. They're already doing this. They're already talking about this on Fox.
Okay. All right. So we'll be ready for that.
Start thinking about the responses to that.
The response is, why do you have such a problem with a black woman? Do you have a problem? You don't want a black woman to be president. You just come at them with that and push them backwards because they do, and they won't be able to answer that. They'll say, no, it's because she did it. It's like, no. That doesn't make any sense. Your guy's done 10 times, 8,000 times worse. You have a problem with a black woman, and you just keep bringing it back to that and nail them on that. And people will start to distance themselves from the attack. That would be my advice, but we've been given lots of advice, all of which, not all, a portion of which, a good amount of which would have worked, should have been tried, and everybody bemoaned later. We watched them all bemoan, we should have done, we could have done. As our audience has done, they've been part of the whole thing, saying, please don't do this, do it this way. No one listens. So we have each other. We're going to get through it with each other. All right, next. Now I'm going to remember to set my timer.
Okay.
I'm so excited when I remember. What's this next thing?
This next thing, I think we're calling it
What's My Lie?
And because What's My Line? Because it was a telephone thing, and that's what it was. So I just, Epstein's back in the news, although not in the news. He's back in the social media, Twitter trending area. Not so much in the news because it's hard to find actual news stories.
Not covering it. Only over in Great Britain are they willing to cover it.
Yeah, it's so like, look.
It's not just Epstein is back in the news. It's a Trump Epstein. There it is.
Look, the guy was friends with Epstein. He was friends enough that he called him a whole bunch of fucking times. All right. And Trump is like, I've never been to the island. Okay, fine. You were still hanging with him a lot. There's still that case.
He's on the flight logs. He's on the
flight logs. The Katie Johnson case is coming back now into the sphere which is I don't even want to go into the details of that, but it's horrifying.
Let me back it up 1 second.
Go ahead.
Let me just give people this. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I do
no,
think
it's
this
okay.
is important. So what has happened is on Monday, let's back up. Back in February, Ron DeSantis, thinking that maybe he was still thinking he was going to run. What was he? Was he still running back in February?
I think he was trying to screw Trump a little bit. I think it was
trying to screw Trump a little bit, but also I think, he's in that bubble of like their people are frothing at the mouth because Epstein has been used to radicalize a lot of people in MAGA and Q, thinking that they could like paint the Clintons, whatever, Bill Clinton, sleazy guy, whatever. And then, this whole thing. And it's just become this obsession of, Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. It was Hillary in her pantsuit doing spider womaning inside the DL cell, or, and wait till the flight logs come out. And they're obsessed with it. Wait, you see, if you get into their little channels, there's several silos. We'll get to that later. Across a few of them, this is a big deal. The Epstein stuff that's redacted, and he was, it's connected deep into all of Hollywood's run by pedophiles. It's like the whole obsession with pedophilia that the MAGA has, and that's somehow everybody's blackmailed, compromised, and that's how the world has really been run. And they're in this narrative, right? Some of it true, some of it not. Doesn't matter. What can you prove? Who knows? They're deep in, and it's their new Elders of Zion conspiracy tied around Jeffrey Epstein because the Jews run the world, that kind of thing. It's that kind of hysteria and insanity. Now, Ron DeSantis in February said, okay, I'm going to allow the judge, whenever they want, to release 150 pages of documents that have been withheld from Epstein's court case in 2006. So this is underlying evidence, testimony, things like that were involved in that 2006 case when Epstein was found guilty, but only of soliciting prostitution, and the prosecutors were allowing him to, the jail and all what they allowed him to like leave his jail cell during the day for a day work program. And then it was egregious what this guy got away with.
It was horrifying.
Right? It was horrifying. Alan Dershowitz writes the whole thing so that, okay, anybody else that was there, they're not going to be guilty, or they're not going to be named, because he was so panicked about his name coming out. So it was that whole thing. In that case, 150 pages of documents released. And that's what Greg showed was some of it. Donald Trump is all over it. All over it.
Yeah. There's pictures, there's video, there's flight logs, there's, phone messages, there's real estate transactions, as you pointed out. There's all kinds of, and he said that they were friends. And it's like, what? You read the allegations and you read about what Epstein did, and we know what he did. That's not a matter of debate. That's a fact at this point. We all know this.
Correct.
And then you take what we know about Donald Trump, right? He's a piece of shit. He's been credibly accused by 4 dozen women of some sort of sexual assault or rape or something like that. Right. He has the weird, creepy lust after his own daughter, who he sort of sent to the Creepies modeling agency when she was like 13 or 14.
Yeah, to John Casablanca.
Got that going on. And the grab him by the pussy comment that he made on the Access Hollywood tape, and all of his sort of braggadocio about, look at Melania. Remember, there was a story about he had the poster of Melania on the back of his door in his office, and he wanted people to see, look at how hot she is. Look,
Yeah.
All of the things.
Until she got pregnant, it weirded him out, and so he went and screwed a porn star.
Right. See, I forgot about screwing the porn star. Right. Okay. That's how bad it is. So all of these things we know about Donald Trump, literally nothing that we know about him suggests that he didn't do the things that he's alleged to have done with Epstein. None.
Right. There's so much on this guy. It's almost like, okay, you're actually going to prove that you have to prove that you didn't, because why are you calling him all the time? You and I talk. They talked as much as you and I talked.
Yeah. I mean, who do I call? You and my mom.
I know.
I know Trump is probably like, I think he was a guy that talked to the phone a lot because he wanted to make deals and all
Why
this
is he calling this guy all the time?
I don't know.
And after hours.
Can't figure it out, you know?
After work hours. He's putting in calls late.
It's
urgent message.
Yeah. I don't know. So I don't know where this is going, but we have dual narratives going on now where the media is jumping on Biden must go because he's too old, and they're ignoring adjudicated rapists, maybe also rape 13-year-olds with Jeffrey fucking Epstein.
I know.
And is there a balance there? I don't know. I don't really understand what's going on. Like, I'm not an expert in this. I haven't gone through it's depressing, frankly, to read about, but like
it's gaslighting. It's like that thing where it's like, I feel like I'm gaslighting myself because here all this is, you won't talk about it. So you're actually, this is from court. This is from a court. I mean, doesn't Rachel Maddow love to sit there and read court documents? Isn't that her favorite gig? This isn't even the flawed adult woman who made the accusations of horrible things that he did to her, like beyond. Then she disappeared and she vanished, and all of that, what you were just talking about, Katie, that could have all come out before the 2016 election and was edged to, and then a few reporters who were like, look, we chased that all down, we couldn't verify it. It's like, what are you talking about? And she, according to her and to the little bit of reporting around her that it did exist, she was threatened and her family was threatened, and in such a massive way, terrifying way, that she dropped everything and fled. So she never said this didn't happen. She just was like, get me out of this. This is too dangerous. So, look. Okay, here's what I want to say about it. Do I have my silos under here? And then we'll move to our guests because we're a little late.
We can do silos later if you want.
Let's do silos later. I want to get to our guests, and I want to.
Me too.
But you guys have to remind me. There's a way to use this, and we all need to jump on it.
All right, I'm making a note to myself.
Thank you so much.
Silos. Okay, we're gonna remind you. One last quick thing. About this is that Sarah Ransom, who wrote a memoir, and there's a pushback going that, well, she lied about the videos. She lied about it. She said that they weren't true, and that's kind of a narrative that the Q people are kind of pushing back on. So what really happened is that she said that she had recorded videos and that she had them, and the reason she said that was so that she wouldn't get killed, because she wanted Epstein to think that she had videos, and if anything happened to her, that she would release them. So that's why she lied about that. She didn't lie about what actually happened.
Right.
So I think this is a key thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
As we're kind of, going through all this. Okay. I feel like I have to.
I know. You need a shower from these.
I know. It's so terrible. I'm sorry we have to talk about this. Okay. Hey, let's have a little singing. It's time for a little singing.
Donald Trump is a frump who is facing 90 counts, but Biden's old. He lied to the banks by astonishing amounts, but Biden's old. Donald Trump had his minions stage a coup, said that COVID-19 was no worse than the flu. He's closer to Putin than Sergei Shoigu, but Biden's old. Trump is a racist, a rapist, a misogynist, and a slob. He's a CI for the FBI, 'cause he's owned by the mob. He's currently estranged from his third wife. He sits on his ass during moments of strife. He'll stop all elections and he'll rule for life. But Biden's old.
Yay!
That's an oldie but a good one. Chunk added the little thing there at the end. Good. So good.
Brilliantness. And you updated a little bit. Worth an update.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, really, it's that fucking dumb. It's that dumb. The decision is that. That's ridiculous. Anyway, our guest, we don't want to keep her waiting.
No more wait.
longer. She's a progressive activist and the executive director of True North Research, national watchdog group. She's worked at the DOJ. She was at the Administrative Division of U.S. Courts, and she has a podcast called Grave Injustice. Lisa Graves, welcome back to the 5A.
Hello. It's nice to see you both. And that opening sequence that begins the show, it just makes me so happy. I have to
Us
say.
too. Yeah.
I just love the walking back and forth. It's fantastic. But it's an honor to be on your show, and thanks for inviting me.
Oh, thanks for coming, Lisa.
We wanted to have you on this week because before all this Biden should drop out business, apparently stuff happened at the Supreme Court. So I have in this case, which is Donald J. Trump versus the United States, known as the immunity case. And I have 2 questions right up front for you about this.
Okay.
The first question is, what the fuck? And the second question is, no, seriously, what the fuck? So you have the floor.
I should have brought my pin, which is WTF, because I'm with you. This is, let me just to be serious. This is the most reckless and dangerous decision ever issued by the U.S. Supreme Court. Wow. It overturns the entirety of our history in rejecting the idea that a president has king-like powers. And while they wrapped, and this was this faction that dominates the court, this Roberts, Alito, Thomas, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, along with little help from Amy Coney Barrett, this faction basically threw out all legal precedents that had said that presidents aren't immune, that they don't have some sort of immunity, and declared that this president, former president now, Donald Trump, had and continues to have absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for whatever they deem is an official act of the president. And Trump tries to imbue everything he does and tried to imbue everything he did as the president. And it is so outrageous that my hope is that people will even get it even more than they already got, how corrupt this court is, how out of control this court is, and that we've got to rebuke it. We've got to repudiate this court, and we've got to restore the actual rule of law, because presidents are not above the law, even if John Roberts declares them so. And for a guy who attempted to claim this was all just normal separation of powers sort of stuff, he literally took over the president's pardon power to pardon the president retroactively and possibly prospectively if Trump were to win. So it is.
Oh my God, that's a great frame.
It really is a great frame.
That's
what
a great
the fuck is exactly the question. Yeah, it is. I mean, they pardoned him and had no power to do so, quite frankly. This is not a power that the judiciary has. This is not a power the Supreme Court has. Immunity is not a power or a privilege that's listed in the Constitution. It's wholly made up by these guys who also testified before Congress, including John Roberts and Sam Alito, that presidents are not above the law, that no one is above the law. So they lied to the American people about one of the most fundamental issues in suddenly deciding
under oath,
suddenly deciding to give protection to this person, to Donald Trump, on what everyone else, every other real legitimate lawyer who's not tied into the Trump operation, believed to be, and rightly so, a ridiculous set of claims.
Yeah.
So it's just, it is. We anticipated that it was going to go badly, though some people were like, oh, maybe Roberts won't do this, or maybe Amy Coney Barrett will stop it. I never believed that. Roberts has just been.
He is radical.
Yeah. He sometimes drives a little slower, but he's still on that destination. And basically, this is an authoritarian maneuver by this captured and corrupted U.S. Supreme Court, and we ultimately we cannot let it stand.
Okay, I have a question for you, Greg. I want you to, if you have a question, to go first. But I have a question for you about, and I want to come back to this. Was there something in how they wrote it of like, if it's an official act, but there's acts of a candidate as well? Didn't they bring up language of like, he wasn't acting as a candidate? If he's acting as a candidate, then he isn't immune. But if he's acting as president, then he is immune. Was there anything like that in there? Because I kind of interpreted it that way, but I know that's their nuance. If that's their nuance, I just want to use it against them, and I'll get to that after.
Well, there are assertions of that kind of nuance, and in fact, Roberts absurdly asserts that that they're not saying a president is above the law. And as Thomas says, they're just merely defining the law to be something that he can't break when he is acting as president. And so in theory, and I'm hoping that Jack Smith and Judge Strickland and others will parse this and say, well, this activity by a candidate is not the act of a president. We have a whole Hatch Act that involves, when someone is acting as a candidate or a president or an officer in the government. But in essence, the way they made this decision, it allows a lot of maneuvering by Trump's lawyers to assert that this is an act, that's an act, because it's not limited. It's any official act. And also, they literally changed the rule of evidence in America, which is to say, evidence based on what he says or does, quote, as his official act, can't be introduced as evidence of criminal activity related to it if it's in this other zone.
Yeah,
and so it's outrageous. Like, I can't even convey in like a human voice. I feel like I needed like a dog voice and like whatever, like how incredible, like alarming. We should all be alarmed. And that reminds me of this book my friend gave me, which is far too thin. This is
what a great book.
Filled. It's by Reagan, if anyone wants to get. I don't get profits from that, just for the record, but it just is so fitting right about now.
Yeah.
But it's worse than that. It didn't just piss me off. It literally wrecked our Constitution. It has wrecked the rule of law and the notion that no one in America is above the law. And it did so on the eve of 4th of July, our independence from monarchy, by making Trump a king retrospectively. And also, quite frankly, the ramifications are extraordinary. What do we do now with military officers who've been taught for decades that they cannot obey an unlawful order? Are his orders unlawful now?
Oh God!
I mean, they certainly are from a human rights standpoint. But this is an obnoxious, outrageous act by a bunch of basically right-wing op-ed writers who happen to be on the bench at the highest court in our country. This is not a legal opinion.
And insurrectionists.
Yeah.
We have an insurrectionist in there.
Two.
Not two.
Yeah.
At least. Probably more.
It's an illegitimate decision that two of those justices should never have been able to participate in.
Right.
At all.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, Roberts is tainted by his failure to insist that they be removed. But now we see why he can't and won't do anything about them, because he needs their votes to accomplish this right-wing authoritarian agenda that they're bent on.
Now, I thought it was really cute before how you mentioned Jack Smith, because if you read Clarence Thomas's concurrence, he says that the office of the special counsel is basically unconstitutional and shouldn't exist, and that Jack Smith has no more right to indict anyone, much less a former president, than Jack White or Jack Black or, Jack Nicholson, for that matter.
Jack the Ripper.
Yes. And I feel like that's like really A+ trolling. I feel like that whole concurrence is just a big fucking troll and an FU to all of us. But when you read, and also a signal to Aileen Cannon for what to do and what to argue. When you read the Thomas concurrence, is it called a concurrence? Is that the right word?
Yep.
Okay, good. When you read the concurrence, what did you think? How should we interpret that?
We should interpret that as another indictment of Thomas's unfitness to be a federal judge, because that statute has been on the books now for decades. It has been used by both Republican appointees, Democratic appointees. It's been deployed even by Trump to investigate Democrats. These are part of the reforms that were adopted after Watergate by the Justice Department. Separately, there's the Office of Independent Counsel, that statute that was eliminated after they used it against Clinton. But the fact is that the Justice Department, of course, has the authority to appoint prosecutors to prosecute. They happen to be in different districts. There's nothing illegal about that. This is standard operating procedure. And the fact that Thomas would take this on, I think, as you suggest, to help guide Aileen Cannon, who is so out of her depth and so willing to bend the law to try to aid Trump. I mean, it's another basically indictment of why Clarence Thomas should not be on the bench. I hope that I am able to see the day and help participate in the impeachment of Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito, quite frankly. and also just since I'm naming names, Brett Kavanaugh for his lying under oath as well. But like, look, I've got a wish list. Hopefully we'll take it up one of these days.
Hopefully. Well,
so go ahead.
Go ahead, Greg.
If you're
following up on that.
No, I was going to talk about originalism because you mentioned the thing about the king, and these fuckers, they're always like to talk about how they're originalists. So we have to figure out what the founding fathers thought. And when James Madison was 25 and he wrote this, what did he mean? And all this shit, right? Now, everybody that's ever studied any piece of American history at all, including grade school kids, knows that the one thing that we can be absolutely crystal clear about what the founders thought is no kings. They want the king. So, like, I don't know. I know they're just cherry picking shit, but can this at least be the death of the whole originalism fig leaf? Or is there a way that we can combat this? Or does it just not matter anymore because there's no reality?
Well, I think it is the death knell of the fake claims of originalism, because this is a repudiation of the language in the Constitution as well as the history of our Constitution, what the framers actually said, including key framers about the power of the president and the power to hold a president accountable through prosecuting them. And we can't forget that one of Trump's arguments during the second impeachment was that he couldn't be impeached until he was prosecuted for a crime. Then he could be impeached. Now it's that you can't be prosecuted for crime, I suppose, therefore you can't be impeached, even though the Constitution contemplates people being impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors. And so this idea that a president can't commit crimes is defied by the language. But not just that. This court held on to this decision until the eve of July 4th, while when it wanted to get Trump on the ballot in Colorado, it acted within a matter of 3 weeks to ensure that he was on the ballot, even though that decision was also contrary to the actual language of the Constitution, which we talked about last time, which literally says, and I'm going to paraphrase, but there's a bar on insurrectionists holding office because, of course, they can't be trusted to uphold the Constitution and follow the law or faithfully execute it. And that bar can only be removed by the terms of the 14th Amendment if Congress, by a supermajority, removes that bar. Not that the bar does not exist until Congress acts. So this court is off the rails. This, Federal Society, Leonard Leo packed court, this dark money billionaire packed court, is out of control. It must be constrained. And the good news is, really the only good news is the American people get it. Before this decision, 70% of the people polled in a recent poll said that this court cannot be trusted. I can only imagine that number increasing after this horrible, outrageous decision.
I hope it. Yeah, I want to give you a little something, and you just tell me if this is ridiculous. This is my mother remembering something and being like, wait a minute. Because when this decision came down and there was that little caveat, it was like, well, if he's acting as a candidate, but as long as he's acting as president, it is an official act and therefore he's immune. But if he's acting as a candidate, and so it was sort of like their bullshit thing, but it is there and it's going down to the lower courts for this. So does anybody remember what Donald Trump, he had two things he did on, actually, it was the next day after he was inaugurated in 2017, the very next day he went to the CIA, Wall of Stars, and took a big crap, right? And just, gave Putin a BJ is what that was. So what, does anyone know what he did even before that?
I'm going to fail this quiz. Tell me. I have no capacity.
Well, according to the Washington Post and, the FEC, because, maybe all those people are lying. He said he qualifies as a candidate for 2020. Yes. On the same day that Donald Trump assumed his new office, he also qualified as an official candidate in the 2020 White House race, according to a letter he submitted.
I remember
to the Federal Election Commission on Friday.
Yeah, I remember this because I was worried at the time that this meant that any commentary about him would somehow count as illegal election talk, or somehow being. Right. Trying to mute people from talking about him because he was a candidate.
Because he was a candidate. I'm sure it had that had a thing to try to, some bullshit thing he was doing. But so he declared on literally the same day that he was inaugurated.
Yep.
So on the first half day, it wasn't even the full day. The first half day, the first seconds of his presidency, he declared himself a candidate and wrote a letter and filed it and said, I'm a candidate.
Yep.
So there isn't a lag of time here.
Right. No, there's not. And also, obviously, he began.
He was a candidate the whole time.
Yep. Yeah.
So I would think that we can sort of say, is he doing something to further and advance his potential just to run and win? Like bury a porn star case, right? Which he's already been convicted for, or pay people off, or commit an insurrection.
I'm going to say, Stephanie, I love how you think. That is such a great flag. I'm hoping that someone is right now tweeting that at Jack Smith.
Pull that up. He filed the paperwork himself. He wrote the letter. He signed it. I think that was before he learned how to hold up the thing. Yeah. Right? Remember how he used to hold that shit up? Every time there's Trump, he draws something. He draws his name, squiggly EKG signature, and then holds it up. Yeah. Before he even learned to do that.
Yeah. It's the hats of the KKK. It's the pointy hat signature.
Yeah. It is an evil looking.
So shout out to my mom. That was her.
That was idea. That's a good catch.
Way to go, Mom.
Way to go, Mom.
Yes.
It seems to me that the problem that we're having with the Supreme Court is a long-standing one, and we know, we've gone through this. Your podcast is about this. How slowly over time the Leonard Leo faction infiltrated and took over and captured the Supreme Court. But I feel like there was a lot of warning signs along the way. And part of the problem that we're having is that we've normalized hideous behavior, starting with Clarence Thomas, if you want, in 1991 with the whole Anita Hill. Anita Hill was not lying. She just wasn't. He did all that shit. He did lots of weird shit with other women too at the time. I don't know what Ginny has him, it's convinced him not to do stuff or whatever, but he had a bad reputation. There's
maybe
shit
it was all her idea. You don't know about Ginny.
I don't know.
She's an odd one.
And then it goes through and all these fancy trips that people take. And, Kavanaugh obviously is just we've heard report of him, tell of him still behaving badly and drunkenly in public, even now. Right. Yeah. And it's completely ridiculous. So I guess my question is Clarence Thomas took in so much money from Harlan Crow and whoever else. Right. And who only befriended him after he became a Supreme Court justice. I mean, how is that not bribes? That's taking bribes. That is taking bribes. Right? Why is it not taking bribes? And why, if it is taking bribes, we just call it he's taking bribes?
Well, it's funny that you just mentioned that, since this court also cloaked itself in shame by redefining bribery.
I saw that.
Only something that happens before an official act, not the rich guy giving you a big gift after the fact and calling it a tip or gratuity. But, clearly by any ordinary person's measure, what Thomas has been up to is graft and corruption. It's taking fancy trips from a billionaire benefactor, and that billionaire benefactor is not just a Nazi memorabilia collector, but also someone who has staked the Republican Party to accomplish this right-wing agenda for years. And not just that billionaire. He's also taken trips with other billionaires
whose interests come before the court.
Right.
Yep. So and also the business interest is one part, which is certainly key, but also the groups that they're funding that are bringing cases before this court, like Charles Koch. Thomas definitely had travel from Charles Koch, hung out with Charles and David, or at least David, at that Bohemian Grove Club in San Francisco. But also, this court, with Thomas's vote, has repeatedly sided with Koch. Sided with Koch a few years ago in the case by Americans for Prosperity, which which struck down access to the major donor names being shared with the state regulators for these nonprofits, these so-called C4s. But also just decided with Koch on the Loper Bright case and the Relentless case. Those are the cases about the Chevron doctrine that they've reversed. To say that courts don't have to defer to agency expertise. That litigation was literally bankrolled by Charles Koch, who helped get these people on this Supreme Court, who helped install this faction. But they didn't recuse from that case. The corruption is so vast. You're right. Why is this allowed to happen? It's allowed to happen because Republicans quite frankly, will do nothing to do anything to harm this faction from having control over the court in order to accomplish this right-wing agenda in defiance of the public will, in defiance of what people want, of popularly supported rules and rights like access to abortion. And they've even suggested that they're going to go after contraception, Griswold versus Connecticut.
Oh, they're going after contraception.
Marriage
it's everything.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah, and they're reversing same-sex marriage. They're doing, and then this is all actually a perfect segue into Project Runaway.
Yeah. Okay.
Which if you're there, if you're here with us for the rest of the show, right? Yeah.
Yep.
We got you, Lisa.
Okay. Good.
Yes.
Okay. Good. I just want to. A lot happened around. You're saying this agenda. There's an agenda behind. There's the court agenda. What the court is attempting to do, and then there are, these very dangerous, very radical zealots who are then putting down on paper and outlining, because of what the court is ready to strip away in terms of our rights and whatnot, and reversing precedent is, this is the Project 2025. This is 2025, saying this is what's going to come in with the Trump presidency. This is this new era of America that these crazy people and these really dangerous clowns, Stephen King clowns, really truly, with the teeth ready to rip our heads and love it. The bloodlust is out of control with this group, is gunning for. Now, those two things are very connected. They can't accomplish Project 2025 without the radical Roberts court. They can't. So all these things are part of one another, and it's the same money behind everything as well, which is really important. But this Christian nationalist agenda. So Donald comes out today on, was it today or yesterday? And posts on, posts on his Truth social thing, his social media crap fest. Right. And it's got carried over onto Twitter, onto his old account, for people to see that he knows nothing about the 2025 people. He has nothing to do with it. He made a big, because it's out there and it's gaining traction and it's freaking him out. And he wants to distance himself from that. From that group, and he says they're dangerous, and he can tell that this is going to be bad. So I have my own theories about that, but I want it, and I think there's a key in there for unlocking how to really take some wind out of the Maga sails that I want to get to. But I first want you to tell us what your thoughts are about Project 2025, what you know about it, the connections with the court, if you have anything that's direct. Anything that you want to say in that, since we have you here.
Well, I read Trump's statement about Project 2025 closely, and it sounds a lot like the stand back and stand by. He literally, first of all, like I will say in my personal capacity till the end of time, he's a liar. So nothing he says is worth anything. But to the extent that he claims he knows nothing about it, but he wishes them luck because they're actually, his buddies. And many of them are his former top aides, like Stephen Miller, and they basically are filling in the details of his sort of, mass sort of high level authoritarian agenda with how to accomplish it. And so it's clearly they think that he will implement it. He's trying to get distance from it, as you say. But what is it? This is a project that's been put forward by the Heritage Foundation, but not just the Heritage Foundation, by more than 100 other groups. This is the first time that this agenda that Heritage puts out every presidential election year has been joined by so many groups. And as you point out, those groups are groups that have helped fund the capture of the court, have funded cases that go to this court where the court has struck down, traditional rules and limits. And so there are things in that Project 2025 agenda that they can accomplish unilaterally through the executive branch, which would be litigated. But basically, I don't think we have any reasonable basis to believe that this court, this Roberts court, this captured faction of Federal Society judges, handpicked by Leonard Leo, handpicked by big dark money, will stop anything in this agenda. And this agenda is so radical. Let me just say one little, please. It attacks IVF and the traditional methods of IVF. It attacks, access to contraception. It suggests using the Comstock Act to, interrupt the mail and block the mailing of the abortion pill, et cetera. It even at one point demands that guidance for women on preventative health not include any reference to condoms because women don't use them. It literally says, in guidance for women getting preventative measures about how to protect their health, strike the word condom. I mean, that's how extreme it is.
Somebody is really tired of his, his Tinder or Grinder. He's really tired of his Tinder conquest to say to him, you need to put a condom on.
But it's radical. That's radical, but it's also radical. It would literally collapse the US economy, the proposals they have on the Fed, on the economy, on trade. It would make the current inflation being driven by these corporate CEOs that are gouging us at the grocery store and the gas station would make that look like child's play. It would drive prices so out of control. And then it also, contemplates all sorts of crazy things like, in essence, removing the ICE police from DHS and sort of making them into some sort of national police force, moving the science around climate, the NOAA, the atmospheric, agency out of, it's the scientific realm and under the control of the military, where they can basically dictate through the commander-in-chief power what data NOAA shares about our planet. It is an extremist agenda. And I'll just tell you, I was there.
It's religious too. I think everybody needs to understand that this is coming with a core of extreme far right political, but also radical
Catholic weirdos.
Catholic
is the word.
weirdos.
Radical Catholic weirdo is the
it's very much like Iran, in terms of what it's this sort of we're going to put the radical nationalists, Christian nationalists in power instead of the radical Islamists. It's the radical, it's and women. It is about oppressing us, but it's also about rounding up immigrants and having camps and having detainings. And it's also set on eliminating any rights whatsoever, and actually then prosecuting and punishing LGBTQ community as well. So those are, every group that we've kind of said is a progressive group, even though they're not. It's, people are across the political spectrum in the right.
It is an exercise in theocratic authoritarianism. And Kevin Roberts, the guy who helms this group, the Heritage Foundation, and who is tied in with this right-wing religious network, these right-wing very religious Catholics, out of step with most Catholics. He literally has said that on day one of inauguration, not filing a new campaign candidacy thing because purportedly, this is the last term. If it were to happen, it's the last term for all of us. But that on the day of inauguration, Trump could basically fire thousands of federal workers, that he could do this. And Robert says in his own words, if you have power, use it. Use it. And so their objective is to get this implemented as quickly as possible, and to use the president's maximum powers that now the court has blessed as even greater than we ever imagined to accomplish it. So it's a dangerous and reckless act. But you're so right, Stephanie, the religious component of it is so offensive. It's so anti-freedom for people to you can believe your religion. I believe people should have the right to believe their religion. This idea that they get to impose their religious beliefs on us as a matter of law, binding law, that is anti-freedom. That is extreme. And that's what this Project 2025 agenda represents. Sorry to interrupt, but that is
that's perfect. So this takes us. Greg, did you want to say something? Because I want to get into the silo thing. And he's waving a flag of that's what Trump was doing.
Yeah, because he knows. I mean, Lisa, you talked about all the stuff that they want to do on day one, and what that will do is it will crash the economy, really crash it. We haven't had a real crash of the economy since the 1930s.
Yeah,
and few people alive have even experienced something that horrifying. But by doing that, somebody in the comments mentioned it's a shock doctrine thing. right? It's going to crash the thing. Trump's going to come in, declare martial law, do his thing, and that's how they're going to take power and sort of impose all this stuff, because we alone could fix the falling economy and all this kind of bullshit. The Kevin Roberts, who's the head of the Heritage Foundation, who was very, integral in getting all these groups in and organizing everything. Radical Catholic, used to be president of Wyoming Catholic College. The New York Times called him a cowboy Catholic, which is a good term for what he is. He is, and LB, you mentioned the religious stuff. Like, not only is it against freedom, it's against Christianity. Like, I grew up Catholic. This shit is not like the main tenets of Catholicism, as I was taught, is help poor people, help the vulnerable, help the sick, help the needy. This does the absolute fucking opposite of that. The Pope excommunicated somebody today, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know who it is, but I bet these fuckers like this guy.
Yeah, a buddy of Tim Bush, who is one of Leo's big, financial buddies.
Francis. Fuck that guy. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Well, I know. I just think they are replacing, and it's been the same group behind this sort of concerted effort to replace Jesus and teachings of Jesus with Donald Trump and make him there's a whole thing going on in those mega churches and all that stuff, all the Paula White world, all this stuff behind Donald, that's been going on for 8 years now, of transforming who their God is, right? And who their savior is. So, I know you're saying that, Greg, but those people, they don't care about actual scripture, or they've never read it.
They can care about whatever they care about. But my point is, for me personally, Leonard Leo and Kevin Roberts need to shut the fuck up and stop calling themselves Catholic, because it's offensive to Catholic people, real Catholic people.
Real Catholic people. So they'll find a different term and call themselves that, and still
fine. Call them that. Don't wrap it up in a religion that lots of millions and millions of people around the world believe in. Call yourself what you are. Some weirdo. Just weirdo is a good name for it.
That's a good
weirdism.
Well, so here's the thing. So, and then we'll have our announcements, but I want to say this. So this thing, I watched an interaction happen on Twitter. I hadn't looked at that. I've just been off of it pretty much, but I watched a little bit of something around the Epstein conversation when the 150 pages were released, and someone had tweeted, if only, and we were waiting to see, is anybody going to cover this? This was like the governor of Florida made this happen. This isn't people making stuff up in social media. This is like actual court pages. This is the governor of Florida being involved. This is actually a big deal, because this man did know that one of the people running, and who was a former president. He did. He knew several former presidents, even though he's dead now. And that we haven't heard anything of it. So and I'm assuming it's happening in the right-wing sphere as well. So on Twitter, someone posted it, right? And there was that's a lie. All of a sudden there's Maga in there. And sometimes you can see that it's a bot, or it's just like, oh, whatever, or some actor. But I'm telling you, there were some real people in that. I've been on that platform long enough. I watched it all. I'm telling you, there were some real people. And there was a person on there. And I looked at the profile. I'm like, okay, this is actual person. And was like, what are you saying? Kind of, and because they forget, and they have a real conversation, I think, is in private, even though they're doing it publicly and social. Right. And I watched that interaction happen naturally. And this person was saying, and this is a big MAGA person, this person was saying, if he really did know him, and he really did call him, because they're like the call logs, if he visited, he's like, then I have to pull my support. I mean, I can't, if that's true. And then I saw like the bot. So there's like, there were the people, it's like, who God only knows, some teenager with zits in Moldova that's being paid, jump in and say, no, it's this independent, and it's a corrupt, how could you believe that? Blah, blah, blah. And okay. It's just the journalist lying. And no one came in and say, no, these are actually you can look at it yourself, right? I was tempted to do it. I didn't. Here's my big point of telling that whole story. I just want everyone to have that background. in the way that market funneling software works, which is what we know, the ad tech software that was used to radicalize MAGA all the way back in 2015 and 2016, the work that the Trump campaign and Brad Parscale did with Facebook. Okay.
Yep.
And they created silos of voters, and it just is a natural way that software works. And it was them targeting and trying to, okay, what's the narrative that will work with this group and that group, and penetrating Facebook groups and doing all that they did. What happened is what's evolved in the 8 years since, because of how the tools that they're using to actually communicate and radicalize people from the Trump campaign and the Trump operation, is that folks have been siloed within the bubble.
Yep.
So, and information doesn't cross the silos, and understand that is critical to the success now. Before, it wasn't something that was so important. Don't tell this group about that thing and this group about that thing. They just were bringing up groups around an idea that was working and clicking. Okay, these people care about whether they have bad water pressure, and they're all online complaining about it. So Donald better come out at a camp, have them come out and start talking about flushing toilets, and this whole group of people, because that exists. And then they're like, oh, he's one of us. He's saying, how does he know what's in my heart and mind? It's because you're posting it on Facebook, you fucking moron, for everybody to see. They've got the software, the technology to know that you're in the critical voting district, and they're going to come and get you. That's how. So it starts that way. But then the silos grow. And then the narratives circle, right? They harden around ideas. One of the narratives that's hardened across several silos is the Jeffrey Epstein pedophile. This is how QAnon came, this whole thing. It doesn't go to every silo. Everyone has a touch of it, but there's a couple of silos where it's the core issue. And what this woman was saying on Twitter is what she's really underneath that, what's being expressed there. What I saw was, I'm in the anything Epstein is what we're at war against. And the Hollywood pedophile, like the whole thing, right? That whole thing for her, that's the third rail. And
they have preyed on people who naturally care about children, and launched this whole Save the Children thing, which is really
correct.
a mislabeled, propaganda campaign, as you point out, part of the silo. And it's interesting what you described about, someone actually seeing the truth. And then it's like the sentinels from Matrix came in to say, no, we're going to attack, we're going to attack, or whatever.
That's not going to, if we keep at it, just like the Project 2025 is another example. We have neighbors here who are big Trumpers, but they're in a silo where they think he's fighting for their rights. And they have LGBTQ child who's in the military, So they don't think that, who just got married, they don't think that marriage is going to get ripped away and taken away. And that's not penetrating that bubble. They're in the military family bubble. That stuff, that's a silo. I mean, they're in the bubble, the Trump bubble, but they're in that silo. If Project 2025 pierces the military family silo, and they start to see what's being written down, it's not going to go down well for those families. It's not. They're going to push back on that. He's nervous about that. And there are other silos where that gets through. Like you said, it's coming after our freedom. So somehow we've got to get these silos to talk to each other about these issues that they care so much about, of which Donald Trump is actually a bad actor. And there's no denying anymore that he's a bad actor. Project 2025, that's the GOP platform. Of course he's running on that. Of course he's going to do that. That's his platform.
Right.
That has to penetrate across the silos. Let people defend it to the other MAGAs who are be appalled by it. Let these people eat their own faces off. And the same for Epstein. So somehow this is what we all, and this is what's so frustrating for all of us, is we're waiting for our fourth estate to do that job, which is their job, which is the proper vetting process, which is why presidents don't have to go through security clearances, because the press is supposed to hold them. You're supposed to get torn apart in so many ways that, only the diamonds that can make it through that crushing process will end up on a ticket. Because ideally, a party would never platform a candidate, but we know that they have to for some reason. All these mysterious reasons. Yes, tied into money. Is it tied into blackmail? I don't know, but they're doing it. They're hollow men and women. They're emptied out of any morality or consistency. So that's my big long expose tonight on what we need to do. We got to cross-pollinate this shit for them, for their own sakes.
For all of our sake. Exactly. I mean, and again, in my personal capacity, I just think, sorry to say that, because my nonprofit does not take a position on, elections.
Good.
But I'm here on a Friday night having a drink with you all, and
on 4th of July weekend.
Yes. On 4th of July weekend, and the stakes are as higher than they've ever been. I think that is absolutely true, and it's also the case that, I completely agree that the Epstein revelations are so potent, because there's documentary evidence, as you pointed out, Greg, and you pointed out something like, this is not something that, people can try to dismiss it as made up, but there's real evidence of the call logs, of the photos of this. And I just think people need to know it, because, and it wouldn't matter to me what the party of the person was. Like, if you're hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein, which is it? I don't know. Epstein. You are hanging out with a pedophile. You're hanging out with someone who is procuring teenage prostitutes for service, for rape, in essence, for statutory.
No, it is. They're underage. It's rape. Yeah. Well, it's industrial scale, so it's not like he had time to do anything else. He didn't have time to do anything else. This was his job. And
the thing is that this whole idea of not the island, it's like they were down the street from each other in Manhattan. Like, there's another island, it's called Manhattan, and Jeffrey Epstein had a whole, set of apartments and rooms there for the services for the men he was enabling to be predators along with him. And so, I mean, I think it's a powder keg. It's shocking that it didn't get covered this week. I'm hoping that, now that we're through the 4th of July, that there will be a renewed focus on it, because people should know. Everyone should know how much, how invested, how close Trump was with this pedophile, this procurer and predator. And I do think it has the capacity to break through to people who genuinely care about kids, but have been somehow sucked into the lie machine of Q, in thinking that, there's like the whole sort of mythology that they've created around Hollywood and DC.
And here's what you say. It's, if people want something to say, even on that lane, we've got all this documentary evidence. It's oodles and oodles and oodles of it. But if that's like you putting it in their face, the conversations can get tricky, right? It can be difficult, because, oh, what about Clinton? Oh God, throw them all. Who can get rid of all of them? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Are you Alan Dershowitz and you're on a plane? I don't care. Are you a prince in the in the UK? Fine, whatever. Like, anyone who's been traveling with them, I don't care who they are. Like,
and it's sort of having a context and understanding too of that this guy was intentionally, he was like a heat-seeking missile for who can I get in with that in terms of power and influence. And the reasons why he had that agenda, there's plenty of reporting on that as well. And that takes you into a whole other mind-blowing thing. But that's not the thing to focus on. The thing to focus on is what he did, what we know he did, when he did it, how prolific it was. There was no time for anything else. And when it comes to sex trafficking of girls, one of the hardest things about prosecuting sex traffickers, and he was prosecuted, thrown in prison a couple times in the end for sex trafficking, as well as Ghislaine, his partner, for sex trafficking. It's really hard to arrest someone for sex trafficking, because especially like that, because of with the underage minors, because the evidence, the other big piece of evidence is the victim.
Yep.
Right. Who has been through this whole grooming process and everything. So that's your, and that ends up also being the witness.
Yeah.
So the evidence is the victim, is the witness, right?
Yeah.
And is a child when this happened to them, and it destroys their personhood in such a devastating way, and they're so fractured. So to get a conviction, to actually have the evidence with the victims and the witnesses to come in and be able to have all the other supporting documentary evidence enough to put someone away, great. Now, that's like big bar. That's a high bar. This guy went to prison for this.
Yep.
Twice. And one of the key witnesses, which means also victim, which means also evidence, has repeatedly named Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So she came from Mar-a-Lago.
Yep.
She's not saying Trump did anything to her. She's saying, this was how I got recruited.
Yep.
This is where they knew to find me. This is what my employer did.
Right. And there's another component of that story, which is that Alex Acosta, who's been part of this right-wing network, Ethics and Public Policy Center, which is closely tied
former
to Leo.
Secretary of Labor, which oversaw sex trafficking. Yeah.
So you have this guy, Alex Acosta, who sort of comes through the ranks of the sort of right-wing religious operation in DC, attacking judicial nominations of Clinton, rolls into the Justice Department under Bush. At the Civil Rights Division, we had no actual, I wouldn't hire my civil rights attorney back then. He had no relevant experience for that role, was then rewarded with the job of being the U.S. attorney in the Southern District of Florida, a district that has real crime, serious crime, for a dilettante.
No, Miami Vice, baby.
Yeah, he becomes the U.S. attorney down there in Florida and cuts that deal with Epstein to give him that tap on the wrist. And then, he gets he kind of rolls out of this fancy job at a university. And then lo and behold, he gets tapped by who? Donald Trump, rewarding the very guy who let Epstein off the hook with a slap on the wrist, rewarded this guy with that job at Labor. And only after the controversy was reprised about who Alex Acosta was, what his role was in letting Epstein, basically run, free in essence. Despite the severity of those crimes, despite that sex trafficking and what was shown in that evidence that you point out, only then did Acosta drop out. But that's who Trump chose to lead the Labor Department of the United States.
Overseeing sex trafficking.
Yeah. And I did work on, So anyway, just bringing that full circle.
I love that you brought that in.
It's a good thing.
This is the argument. And this doesn't get into anything conspiratorial. It doesn't get into anything overly salacious. It's literally just, can you see the mechanics of this?
Yep.
Let's just look at how the gears fit together and how they turn in actual court evidence and the stuff that happened in reality, like this guy becoming Secretary of Labor.
Yep.
That's what happened. That's what he did.
Well, it's a good thing other justices said that it's okay for tips to be legal, because then Acosta could breathe a little sigh of relief there. Didn't do anything wrong to get compensated after the fact. Then it's totally legal and totally cool.
Yeah. I mean, that reward, when he was named, my jaw dropped. I could not believe it. But of course, now we know, right? We know that Trump was so close to Epstein. We know that this guy helped get Jeffrey Epstein a sentence that no other prosecutor, in my view, no other U.S. attorney would have countenanced. But Alex Acosta did.
And this is the evidence from that case that has never been able to be released until Ron DeSantis, for whatever reason, said, okay.
Yeah.
God only, I don't think Ron is that bright.
Yeah. That's got to go viral, Greg. That's got to go viral. Maybe
we can make this our icon on Twitter, all of us. See if anybody figures it out.
People won't know. People won't know.
All right, guys. I think we're going to move into our last segment, Lisa, and I am actually going to time that one because we're running long.
We were so kind to give me
talk with you forever.
No,
we have something first. We have something first.
Okay.
We're going to do announcements?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any announcements, LB? I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like I do, but I don't. It's not coming to me. I should have written it down. Okay, go ahead.
I'm announcing that I'm running for president, and therefore I can do whatever crimes I want forever.
Oh, that's exciting.
I think that's how it works. Lisa, is that right? Do I have it right? Is it just do whatever I want now because I just said it?
Yeah. Nice try. But yeah. Your name is missing the initial 5 letters of TRUMP, but yeah.
Dang it. I have 5 letters.
What about BIDEN? Can he do whatever he wants?
That's the big wrong question. 5 letters. My announcement is that my audiobook is out. Rough Beast, the audiobook is out. Featuring, by the way, Lisa, you were talking about the 14th Amendment. I used that whole quote from the podcast in there explaining the ridiculous Supreme Court ruling on that. So that's in the book. Lots of stuff about Project 2025 and Kevin Roberts is in the book. All the crazy shit Trump is going to do is in the book. It's a short book, and I read it if you want to. If you don't want to read, hurt your eyes.
I'm excited to hear the audio version, and I'm officially giving you this card virtually.
I love it.
Thank you.
Oh my God, I love all of your your things to show. You brought some show and tell.
Yeah,
it's so lovely.
Show and tell is good. The other thing.
Lisa, go ahead, Greg.
I was going to say, True Player wanted us to share, and I can't remember what it's. There's organizations that are doing things that are kind of take action organizations for democracy and getting postcards out and stuff like that. And there's one that she wanted to us to mention and promote. Here it is. I'm going to put it up on the screen here. It's the postcard.
Turnoutpath.org.
So that's for sending postcards to people. And if you're feeling frustrated and you want to do something, that is a thing that that you can do.
And it works. The postcards, it's effective. Yeah.
I have friends who live in Georgia, and during that whole Senate race, they got like 80 postcards. Just not 80, but they got a lot of postcards, which is
good.
It's awesome.
Unnecessarily for them because they were voting the right way anyway.
But it's good to show this is the wave. This is where it's going. Yeah. And Lisa, you didn't have any announcements? You've got nothing coming up? Do you have any?
Well, I'm excited that my podcast is still out. It's Grave Injustice. And we have a bonus episode coming imminently about what just happened with the last decisions of this radical reactionary faction that dominates the Supreme Court. So there's a new episode coming. If you look for Grave Injustice, wherever you get your podcasts, you can watch or listen to all the ones so far. And there's a new one with amazing folks on it who are legal scholars and smart, smart in terms of how they think about it, not like a bunch of boring legal citations. So it'll be good. Come listen. Yeah.
Okay, great.
When does that drop? Do you know what day it drops?
I think midweek, possibly Thursday.
Okay, midweek, possibly Thursday. Look out for that. Grave Injustice. I like the title. It's very clever.
Yeah.
It's clever. I like it. I get it.
It's a good one. I get it, Lisa Graves.
I got to have some reward from the name I've been teased about my whole life. So there's got to be some way to turn it, Yeah.
Good. All right. Is that it? Is that all we got?
That's all the announcement. I don't think I have any more announcements.
All right.
We want to thank everybody for watching the show.
I'm so sorry.
For buying the memberships, for doing the memberships. We always appreciate it. I feel like we don't acknowledge it as much as I would like, but we're going to acknowledge it right now. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. We love this community. It's amazing. And really, you are fucking awesome. There it is.
What she said. What she said.
Am I allowed to display that word, or is that going to hurt?
Of course. Yes.
Okay,
no.
Right.
I literally say fuck in the opening.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so. But I had a moment of doubt there for a second. A moment of doubt. Yes.
It's terrible. We're terrible.
This is one of my higher swearing episodes, but I did warn at the beginning.
You did warn, and everybody's feeling it. And if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Anytime you want to hit that like, we love that. That all helps us. It helps other people. It helps YouTube put us into the algorithm so that other people can help find us, and it can grow our community, which we would really adore. And of course, if you become a member, we appreciate you so much for the support. We do need the support. Okay. I do want to, while we're all here, before we move into this last thing, I just want to give everybody this isn't an announcement, but this is like a thing. I know this is really, we're not here to gaslight or to sell. There's a phrase called hopium, you know, where it's like, you're just trying to get me off on hope. And when I really need to be, you know, people being critical of that when they really need to be present to the stakes and to the danger and the threats that we're in. Stop selling us some savior. Jack Smith is going to save the day. Merrick Garland's going to save the day. All this sort of stuff. So I understand that. I just want you guys all to know I'm hopeful because that keeps me sane, not because I'm trying to sell you on anything false or gaslight you. So I want to say this because I am hopeful. I say a lot of hopeful things, and we will get through this because we have no choice. We're going to get through it because that's all we can do. This moment that we're in, with this whole thing of trying to get Biden to step down and all of this insanity going on and dropping the Epstein stuff when, you know, that getting released right when all the narrative is so focused somewhere else, the gamut of things that we're up against and how dangerous it all is and what's at stake for all of us is very real. We're all really present to it here. Greg and I, Lisa, all of our guests. We're in a very dangerous moment. It is time to take things extremely seriously. It is time to get real. It is time to find some action to do. And one of the most important things to maintain is to keep yourself out of a state of despair.
Yes.
But don't think for a second that Greg and I, and I'm sure Lisa haven't, since especially with that immunity ruling, haven't been really terrified. So we're right there with you. If you're feeling terrified, yeah, it's a bad, scary moment. It doesn't mean that's going to be our fate. And we're not going to stop fighting for what we care about. And most importantly, being there for one another. So I just wanted to say that because I just felt like if we hadn't really, you know, we have a lot of fun here and we hadn't really come down into that this week. And I think a lot of people are in a real bad spot emotionally about this whole thing. And especially that we're on repeat doing the same kind of thing that got us Trump in the first place in terms of the discourse, which is what we're all engaged in. So that's it. Sorry. That's my little thing. Sorry, Lisa. I just felt like it's necessary so people don't dismiss what's being said here.
No, I appreciate that very much. And, you know, I believe that hope is an act of resistance. If we get consumed with despair, we will lose. The bad guys will win. So for me, I tell myself that you know, worry never changed anything for the better, but action has. And so I can squander this moment with worry, or I can use this moment for action. That's not to say that we don't feel grief over what's happening to our country, what this court is doing to our country, what this just immoral, like I can't believe I sound like a Puritan, but like this fundamentally immoral, like embrace of this criminal, convicted criminal, like just someone who, like, I mean, we live in a society in which we have this requirement now in Louisiana that the 10 Commandments be, you know, put in schools, while many of the people that push that law into place are embracing a guy who's broken, I don't know, 6, 7.
No, all of them. Oh no.
Yeah, I mean, you know, anyway, like we live in this weird place where the people who claim that they're so moral are actually like enacting and putting forward, you know, this extremely immoral and dangerous charlatan. And it's terrifying, as you said, but we can't let that consume us, because it will take us off of the actions we need to take in order to try to protect ourselves, our families, and our future. And so I agree that hope is necessary in order to keep moving forward. I didn't mean to expand with such a long answer.
I'm so glad.
No, I like when you go in this lane. This is good.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, we like it.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
I'll just add that, you know, if you read all the stuff about the fascism and what the Russians are trying to do, it's really to break our brains. It's not to lie. It's to make it impossible to figure out what's real and what's not real. Like, for example, that Russ douchebag guy on the New York Times, whatever his name is. There was a piece, it came out, and the headline is, "Why do we even need a president?"
Oh, that.
And I
missed that one.
I didn't know. And I'm like, is that a New York Times PitchBot thing? Is it The Onion? Like, what the fuck is that? Like, and I feel like there's this, there's so much gaslighting. Yeah. And what I'm always going to try to do, and I think all of us are going to try to do, is push back against the gaslighting and be like, no, wait a minute. The guy really is a criminal. He really is a liar. He really was a terrible president that was responsible for hundreds of thousands of people dying unnecessarily. And also on the way out the door, tried to overthrow the fucking government.
Right.
And he was friends with Epstein. So whatever combination of things that takes, I know people out there on the street that aren't as plugged in say dumb things, and they don't realize that they think he's just a regular Republican or he's a maverick or whatever. The reality is what we're saying it is. That's what we're trying to do, is cut through the bullshit always. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
That's what you do, Greg. Yes.
That's what we're trying to do. Okay, we got to go this one real quick.
Real quick.
Lisa, you're so cool. It's late. Are you all right?
I'm good. Yep, I'm good.
Oh, God bless you. All right. So what is it? Oh, we didn't have time last week to do this one.
Yeah, we got to talk about Assange. Got to
talk
about Assange.
Julian Assange.
Okay, so real quick. Okay, Assange was he was in jail all these years. He reached the plea bargain, some weird island that I've never heard of that the U.S. owns, and now he's back in Australia, free from prison. And lots of his fans, Assange has been freed, and isn't it wonderful? He's a journalist, and this is a good day for free speech, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I'm thinking about how to frame this, because if you go back and read the timelines from 2016 and what he did, he was fucking helping the Kremlin. He just was. I don't want to go into it now. If you don't believe me, I don't know what to tell you. He just was. Okay.
Yeah.
Apart from that, just table that.
We're tabling that.
This whole idea of he's a journalist, this is the thing that gets me. They say he's a journalist. Well, you know what? Auric Goldfinger ran a very successful smelting operation, and Gus Fring was a very good boss in a wonderful restaurant chain of chicken restaurants called, Pollos Hermanos. Those people did those things, and they were also fucking bad guys. So Julian Assange did things in his life that fall under the heading of journalism, but that doesn't mean that everything he ever does is journalism. He doesn't get the Clarence Thomas Supreme Court immunity thing for every single thing he does is journalism from now on. Like, if you go back and read, just okay, take it through here. He's in Sweden, okay? Sweden is a country that has never come up before in 8 years of us talking about Trump. It's just never come up, in my understanding. It's a neutral country as far as that goes. Assange goes to Sweden and hangs out with these women who like him, who think he's this heroic guy. And two of them, not just one, two, who then accuse him of sexual assault, where basically, I'm not going to go into the detail, he refuses to wear a condom and kind of does that thing, which is consistent with his life, because that's what he does. He's like Elon Musk. He's got like kids all over the place.
Exactly like Elon Musk.
Okay, so there's all this stuff going on. They go to the police and they report him, and he does what innocent men do. He flees the country immediately, and rather than go to trial to prove his innocence, goes to the Ecuadorian embassy, as one does, and blames the United States on Sweden coming after him, and I'm being prosecuted because I'm a free speech absolutist. And if you need me, I'll be in the basement of the Ecuadorian embassy. And this is not the way that journalists behave. This is not the way that innocent people behave. This is the way that, rapists with money behave, frankly. So he basically waits out the statute of limitations in that place. And then finally they come and get him, and he holds up there because he doesn't want to come to the United States again, because he's been charged with crimes here. And I'm being prosecuted great. Come here and prove your innocence. No? Oh, you don't want to do that? So this guy doesn't behave like someone who's innocent. He behaves like a criminal on the run. And I'm going to just say, because he's a criminal on the run, Sometimes things are really easy to see, you know, and I get, you know, did he do some good things here and there? Sure. Did he did he document dump arbitrarily and get lots of people in trouble, including, by the way, people that were helping us in Afghanistan and put them at risk? And then did he not say to somebody at a table, fuck them, they were informants, they deserve what they get? He denies saying that, but I believe he said it, just like I believe that Trump said the suckers and losers thing. And because, you know, consider the source. So I get why people like, you know, it's a good op, this guy. It's fun. He's like Christian Slater in Pump Up the Volume, but with white hair. You know, he's this kind of heroic dude that's doing the hacking and he's sticking it to the man. He's so punk rock and all this stupid bullshit. But, you know, he won't wear a condom. He's rapey and he's a scumbag. And I'm sorry he is. That's just, and he doesn't care about journalism. He cares about Julian Assange. That's what he cares about. And that's it. So, you know, the only woman that he came in contact with was his lawyer in the Ecuadorian embassy. And he's like having an affair with his lawyer. You're not supposed to do that. That's not a thing is that something? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I didn't go to law school, but that seems conflict of interest to you, Lisa. Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Typically that would be not, it's verboten. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, it just
not
seems
for the
like
client per se. I mean, for the lawyer, but you know, still it's unseemly. It's unseemly.
It's not cool.
I think in this case for the lawyer too. You know,
it's not, you know, I worked in HR. You're not supposed to hook up with like one of your subordinates. You're not supposed to do, there's lots of things you're not supposed to do.
Yeah, but he doesn't care about that.
You know, I mean, I worked on national security issues for a number of years and worked with some whistleblowers who at the time were, you know, coming forward about some of the Bush administration practices and, you know, referred them to other counsel to help them navigate their risk, and you know how they might be able to share information that they had learned, and I've also worked with whistleblowers since then, not in the national security arena, and you know, for me, you know, in my my assessment of Assange is like an organization that was devoted to journalism would have done some redaction on those cables to not put innocent people's lives at risk. Yeah. It was reckless to do it that way, and in disregard of the consequences to people who were either in the government and undercover, or you know, in the intelligence community in a way that their names were not known, and rightly so, or were assisting us in our you know, in ways that weren't illegal, but we're trying to help protect, you know, our soldiers and folks abroad. And so it was reckless what he did. Now, you know, I do believe that some of the other material that WikiLeaks put forward over time, you know, was important for debunking the lies that the Bush administration was telling us about some of the things. But like an organization that was devoted to journalism would have assessed those documents, shared the parts that revealed those lies, and would have protected the innocent people whose names were in those cables in raw form. And he didn't do that. But you're right, Greg.
He didn't do that. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, the other part is like this, like Sweden, at least in the modern era, does not have a reputation for political prosecution.
Right.
Those are legitimate prosecutions of legitimately bad criminal activity by credible witnesses who are willing to testify against him. And it's appalling what they say he did. It's horrifying. It is rape to you know, to have someone have sex with you, you know, unprotected, even though you insisted on protection. That's also fundamentally immoral. But the other part, as you point out, part of what Assange was doing in 2016 was his vendetta against Hillary Clinton because of the U.S. position, the position of the Obama administration, including the State Department, about his role in leaking the identities of people in these cables without any redaction whatsoever. And so it was driven by that, you know, his hostility toward her, his alliance with Putin, and the alliance with Putin is undeniable. In fact, it was almost boasted of, right?
So no, it was. Listen, he was. Our intelligence community doesn't come out with a unified assessment of high assessment without it actually being something very, very real. And there was he was called an intelligence front for Russian intelligence. Yeah. That's what that was. So publishing is not, or I should say, being an intelligence front for laundering and breaching from a hack and from a theft right? And actually, he paid hackers, or he was somehow involved with hackers, and that was
he offered rewards to hack into.
He offered rewards to hackers.
Which journalists don't do.
That is journalism.
Does implicate criminal activity, by the way.
None of that is journalism. None of it is publishing. None of it. None of it. Nor is with Snowden, which is what this all came from, and his grievance against him is always about, oh my God, it's always about hating some woman did them wrong, these men. And they can't get over it. It's just an injury they cannot get over if they are in their essence a goober. They can't get over a woman being better than them, smarter than them, or rejecting them. They can't. They freak out. They lose it. That's how you know you're dealing with a goober. Okay. So goober Assange, espionage.
I'm writing that down because
espionage is not whistleblowing.
I wrote that down because I was like, oh, I know that. I did not have the language.
Oh, the goober thing? Yeah.
Yes,
I call these guys artless goobers all the time. But it's Greg and I earlier were like figuring out, I was like, well, let's really get down to it. Let's really define it, because it's not, there's always an injury. There's always from a woman, there's always misogyny. And when and wherever that happened, usually around the age of 13, whatever the first big one was, they're frozen there. So these are, you're not dealing with with a emotional or psychological adult. Right. And usually that rejection or that injury or whatever it is, and then it could get as exacerbated later on by like the evil Hillary Clinton in the State Department because she sent the spies to come and get me when these women were spies, and get like this conspiratorial thing all driven by a woman that can reactivate it. But my theory is it happens when whatever their emotional age is, they got arrested because some girl in her core knew, ew. Ew.
Sometimes it really is that simple.
It's really that simple. You're a goober. No. You can always be a goober. It doesn't mean they can't flourish later out of their gooberdom to get some actual action. It just means when they were 12, 13, 14, 16, whatever that was, the initial reaction to them, like the Elon Musks of the world, is
I mean that's that whole incel thing, right? It's the whole involuntarily celibate. Well, there's a way out of it. Be a nice guy, don't
take a shower,
don't be a jerk. Like, don't assume that you have a right to sex with anyone that you're attracted to. Anyway,
they're goobers. So they're goobers, and then they can be dangerous goobers. They can be, what do I call, who is the drunky McRape face? Oh, that's Kavanaugh. Like, who do I call drunky McRape face? That's Kavanaugh. That's another goober.
Another goober. Absolutely a goober. Yeah. I'm going to agree on the goober point. I think it's, I think you're onto something here.
I missed this whole thing, so it was an education, LB. Thank you.
Good. We did for me too, because I hadn't defined it yet. But
I think it ties into also why they want to have a lot of kids with a lot of different women, because they think that the number of times they're ever going to copulate is limited, and therefore they have to make it count to spread their eugenically.
I don't know.
I'm telling you, it's part of the psychology.
This is the ew.
What you just said.
It's the ew.
It's the ew and it's the goober. So hey guys, I have another announcement.
Okay.
I've looked at my Twitter and I don't see that Biden dropping out is trending or Biden is old is trending. I see the NYT. I see Ghislaine Maxwell. I see Trump is not fit to be president. I see Stop Project 2025. So I guess Biden survived the interview.
He survived George Stephanopoulos.
I guess he survived. I think that's a wonderful thing.
Okay.
I think this is good. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
So.
Because you know what?
I don't know what.
We're going to get through it.